Hilary started like this, and nobody has named it. Yet a storm is putting itself together in the water that drowned Southern California 3 years ago. And nobody has named it. The National Hurricane Center has it at 90%. The highest odds it is carrying anywhere it forecasts. A storm that can shut an international airport, strand tens of thousands on a peninsula, and push water north into American desert towns. For weeks, the fear pointed east at a below normal Atlantic. But the El Nino holding the Atlantic down is warming the Pacific, and tonight 3 systems are turning south of Baja at once. All 3 get walked here, and so does the burned American ground that floods even when no storm lands. But first, the one closest to real. Francisco Cota Marquez, Civil Protection Director for Los Cabos, warned this season could bring 18 to 21 storms. 600 personnel are already staged. That warning came before the season opened. His full number: 9 to 10 tropical storms, 5 to 6 hurricanes at Category 1 or 2, and 2 to 4 major hurricanes at Category 3 or higher, driven by the El Nino warming of Pacific surface water. More than 114,000 people across Baja California Sur have already run the national drill, and the Municipal Civil Protection Council was reinstalled to coordinate the response. None of that was staged for a forecast track. There is no forecast track. It was staged for a percentage. The percentage is worth reading exactly: 90% through 48 hours, 90% through 7 days. The same number twice, which is the Hurricane Center's way of saying this is not a maybe that might improve. It is a system that has essentially already decided, and it sits several hundred miles south of the tip of the Baja California Peninsula in water that is warmer than normal for the rest of the season. The forecaster on duty at the Hurricane Center on Saturday, signing as Hagen, described the first system in plain language: showers and thunderstorms quickly becoming better organized around a broad area of low pressure, several hundred miles south of the southern tip of Baja California. Internally, it is carried as EP92. It has no name because it is not a storm yet. The discussion, issued at 16:05 Universal Time, says it is moving west-northwestward and is likely to become a tropical depression by the end of the weekend or early next week. The second system sits well to the south-southwest of the same tip of Baja. Disorganized showers and thunderstorms, a broad low, 50% through 48 hours and 50% through 7 days. It is carried as EP91, and here's where the 2 stories become one. The Hurricane Center expects the first system to merge with, or absorb, the second by late Sunday. 2 areas of disturbed weather becoming a single, larger one. That is not a detail. That is how these things get big. A broad low that swallows another broad low has more moisture, more spin, and more room to organize than either had alone. Then there is the third. Another area of low pressure is expected to develop well south of the southern tip of Baja California during the middle portion of next week, near 0% through 48 hours because it does not exist yet, 40% through 7 days because the water underneath it is ready. So the honest picture is this: 1 system almost certain, 1 being eaten by it, and a third scheduled to appear behind them in the same water within days. And that is only the part that has not started yet. The Pacific is already carrying 2 live storms further west. Hurricane Lala is at Category 4, north of the Papahanaumokuakea Marine National Monument. Tropical Storm Moke is roughly 450 miles southeast of Hilo, Hawaii. The Central Pacific is not expected to produce anything else through the next 7 days, which means the basin's entire remaining supply of new storms is the cluster sitting south of Baja. Compare that with the other side of the continent on the very same day. The strongest area the Hurricane Center flagged in the whole North Atlantic was 40%, out near the west coast of Africa. The other 2 were 20% and 20%. 3 weak maybes across an entire ocean, against a 90% a few hundred miles off Mexico. The season that America watches is quiet, and the season almost nobody watches is loaded. Now the question that actually matters, and the answer nobody has: where does it go? Nobody knows. There is no track. There's no cone. There's no watch and no warning anywhere in the United States, and the only stated motion, west-northwest, is the motion that usually takes a storm out into open ocean where it spins itself out and bothers nobody. That is the most likely outcome, and it deserves saying plainly. But the reason the Hurricane Center flags these systems 5 and 6 days out is that the most likely outcome is not the only one. And the record of what has come out of this exact water in this exact month is the reason Baja and the American Southwest both watch the odds board instead of the coastline. Start with 2023. On the 9th of August that year, the Hurricane Center marked an area of disturbed weather in the eastern Pacific as having development potential. That mark went up 156 hours before anything formed, 6.5 days of nothing but a percentage. On the 16th of August, a tropical depression formed roughly 345 miles south of Acapulco, and 6 hours later it had a name: Hilary. 2 days after that, Hilary was a Category 4 hurricane with 140 mile per hour sustained winds and a central pressure of 940 millibars. On the 20th of August, it came ashore at San Quintin on the Pacific side of Baja California, about 215 miles south-southeast of San Diego. By then, it had weakened to a tropical storm, and it was falling apart fast. It did not matter. Southern California was placed under the first tropical storm warning in its history. Not the strongest, the first. There was no precedent for the paperwork. And then the part that should stop anyone who assumes a dying storm is a safe storm. The Hurricane Center's own report states that Hilary was already post-tropical when its remnants moved into California. It was no longer technically a storm. Some desert locations still took more than half of their annual rainfall in a single day, around 6 times their normal August total. Death Valley recorded 20 inches, which is more than its entire average annual rainfall. 4 people died, 3 in Mexico and 1 in California. The damage came to roughly $948 million, about $900 million of it inside the United States. And Inyo County, California alone accounted for about $500 million of that. $900 million of American damage from something that had officially stopped being a hurricane. That is the piece the Southwest has learned and the rest of the country has not. The threat from an eastern Pacific system is very rarely the wind. It is the water it throws north after it is finished. Which brings this back to the ground that is already primed. The Arizona monsoon has been running hard this summer. On the 12th of August, the National Weather Service office in Phoenix logged widespread showers and thunderstorms breaking out across the western deserts, from Imperial County in California into southwest Arizona. Several of them went severe. Damaging winds, a dust storm, flash flooding, with the worst of it in the Imperial Valley and around the town of Quartzsite in La Paz County. This month, the Weather Prediction Center put a level 2 of 4 flash flood risk on the Interstate 19 corridor, Nogales through Tucson into Casa Grande, with a level 1 risk wrapped around Phoenix, southeastern California, east of Riverside, southern Utah, southern Colorado, and northern and western New Mexico. That was on an ordinary monsoon day, no hurricane involved. And under all of it sits the thing that turns ordinary rain into a wall of moving ground. Arizona burned again this year. The Rock Canyon fire scar sits in Coconino County, about 9 miles west of House Rock Valley Road and 9 miles south of Highway 89. The Pocket Fire burned in Oak Creek Canyon. The Dragon Bravo fire burned on the Grand Canyon's north rim. Burned soil does not absorb water. Fire bakes it until it repels rain the way a roof does. Everything that lands runs off, and it runs off carrying whatever it can lift. That is a debris flow, a fast-moving mixture of mud, rock, boulders, and whole trees, heavy enough to carry vehicles and buildings with it. The rainfall threshold that sets one off on a fresh burn scar is low enough that a routine thunderstorm can clear it. On the 15th of July this year, the National Weather Service issued a life-threatening flash flood warning for the area around Supai and Beaver Falls in Coconino County. That is the risk on a normal summer afternoon. And the Arizona Department of Water Resources is blunt about how long it lasts. After wildfire, the flood risk in that watershed stays significant for 10 years or more. It only comes down as the vegetation grows back. So the honest sentence about the Southwest is not a hurricane is coming. It is that the ground is already sitting at the edge of its threshold, and the largest moisture source on the continent is spinning up to 2,200 miles to the south with no forecast track. There's a second American exposure, and it has nothing to do with rain. On the night of the 14th of September 2014, Hurricane Odile came ashore near Cabo San Lucas as a Category 3 after peaking at Category 4. More than 200,000 residents lost power. Los Cabos International Airport took some of the worst damage on the peninsula and closed to commercial flights, and roughly 30,000 tourists were left on the ground with no way off. Mexico ran a military and commercial airlift, flying travelers out free of charge to Tijuana, Mazatlan, Guadalajara, and Mexico City, with consular help for foreign nationals. 9 years later, as Hurricane Norma approached, about 40,000 tourists sheltered inside their hotels in Los Cabos at roughly 75% occupancy. Those are American families in enormous numbers on a narrow peninsula, dependent on one airport. That is why 600 officers are staged before a storm exists, and it is why Coto Marquez's council was reinstalled for the season rather than assembled after a warning. Here is what happens next, mechanically. If the first system reaches tropical depression strength and then holds together into a tropical storm, it takes the next unused name on the 2026 Eastern Pacific list. The list this year is the same one that ran in 2020, and this season has already worked through Amanda, Boris, Christina, Douglas, Elida, Fausto, Genevieve, and Hernan. The next name on that list is Isel. Whether this particular system is the one that takes it, nobody can say yet. That depends on which of the three organizes first. What can be said is that the naming is the least important part. Hilary was post-tropical when it did its damage. Odile's remnants pushed north into Arizona and New Mexico after Cabo. A system does not need to hold its title to reach American ground. Right now, 3 areas of disturbed weather are turning south of Baja California. One of them is at 90%. One of them is about to be eaten by it. One of them has not formed yet. The hurricane season out there runs until the 30th of November, and the water is warmer than normal for the rest of it. There is no warning to act on tonight, and pretending otherwise would be dishonest. There is only an odds board, a peninsula full of visitors, and a stretch of burned American ground waiting to find out whether the next number that goes up is a track. Subscribe for the real numbers on the next one, straight from the Hurricane Center the day they are issued.